at the end of the day, APC can scream all their screaming and shout all their shouting, and PDP can respond back. The truth of the matter is, which of these parties had served this nation well? And look at the APC government with a PDP legislature.
When you say with the PDP legislature, people will ask, what do you mean?
Exactly what I'm saying. You see, before that election, we like putting the cart before the horse in this country. In a situation where only 2 states are viable in Nigeria, Lagos State and Ogun State, that is, they generate enough revenue more than their capping hand going to Abuja. And you have 34 others that are totally dependent, like appendages of the federal government. Should our concern now still be politics? Should our concern be for 4 years election? Nigerians and Nigeria does not have democracy. What we have is electocracy. The whole place is wired up every 4 years because citizens know that's the only time they can have any stomach infrastructure, any dividend of democracy, healthcare deliveries in shambles, and almost everything, including high-profile debt for infrastructure that would take time to build. I understand. But let us see that you are really doing something, and that can give some hope and succor to the citizens. If you take APC and do what they call analysis, or just check the I don't want to say psychoanalysis, just check it. You will see that APC's right leg is CPC, left leg is ACN, right hand is AMPP, left hand is a faction of PDP, and right at the head, you don't even know how many chromosomes are in the brain. Therefore, if the right leg wants to go here and the left leg wants to go there, you find all the mess that's going on. What is the ideology? What did they come together to do? I did say then, let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's put our house in order, restructure our country in a way that we will have a viable federal government and viable, if not, as strong federating units. And I did place a ban publicly, prophetically, on that election. Everybody thought PDP must have bought me, Jonathan must have given me money. He's alive. If he has given me anything, let him say so. And then I came back, lifted that ban when I saw that, okay, we'll be able to manage through this. And I said, here is the word of the Lord. Those who think after this election, PDP's loss will be APC's gain, should think twice. Because after the election, APC's pain will become PDP's gain.
But you also did say, or at least you were quoted as saying that, prophetically, to use your words, that the Messiah, well, that was the word that was used. I don't know if you used that word. But that the Messiah will be coming from the north.
No. There's a tender plant from the side of the north. Now, the side of the north in the Bible is not northern Nigeria. A tender plant from the side of the north simply means from Zion, from the righteous group. A new breed of politicians who hate corruption, who choose to win by righteousness. I explained it in the context and what those things were given. If you read Psalm 48, great is the Lord, greatly to be praised, in the city of our God, in the mount of his congregation, beautiful for situation. The joy of the Lord is Mount Zion on the side of the north, the city of the great king, that will have people who fear God, who carry that portion that you can win by righteousness, not these compromises that always lead us back into captivity. Because when strange bedfellows come together, like the APC, what are you going to get? Where's the ideology? Ask on the street, ask the students, ask commenters. There's a weariness among Nigerians. What does PDP stand for today as a party? And what does APC stand for? One of the things that really affected me as a person is when you change the goalposts in the midst of game, I consider you unreliable. If you're going to do that, let's sit at the table and say, I'm changing. Inform the people. At the time, Mr. President said, all the campaign things that people spoke cannot be credited to him because he didn't say them. That's unfortunate. I will not let them say it on my behalf. I would have corrected it at that time so that the hopes and the expectations of people are not unnecessarily raised. And then lately, at the colloquium for 66 birthday bash of the Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, the president said, never again will Nigerian citizens not be able to exercise their sovereign right in a free, fair, and credible election. And many people thought that and clapped their hands. And I sat back there, I said, whether I said that from his heart or was written from him, people don't think anymore. Is sovereignty now just reduced to 4 years election? You can't say that the days of election rigging is over. But are you saying the citizens have no right once they vote into power? You can exercise that power, whether it's to their detriment or not. That's not all. Sovereignty rests in the people. Before you are voted for, after you are voted for. That's why you can recall a parliamentarian and say you're no longer representing our interests. That's why you can tell your parliamentarians or tell those in the Senate, hey, let this man go, let him go and rest. But you see, the problem is the Nigerian populace don't know their right from their left. And before us is a matter of, out of two devils, choose one.
Yeah, but it would also appear to be a situation of the chicken and the egg, which came first. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at it, there are those who would argue that the issue of followership is also equally important, and in some instances probably more important than the issue of leadership. Mm-hmm. Because the leader, except in unusual circumstances, must come from amongst those who will be the followers.
But the Bible puts it right. It said, like the people, like the priest. Most people think the Bible says like the priest, like the people. They are from among us. But don't promise me what you cannot offer me. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Beware of a naked man who promises you a shirt.
Yes, but these are people who keep making these promises, and people keep falling for these promises. People keep taking things from them in return for overlooking possibly these promises. Because very often, these promises that I spoke to an official of a past government who said to me, essentially for difference in language, the same promises have been made since 1957, up to date, by politicians to the Nigerian populace. But
there are exceptions to that rule. The Action Group, the UPN, they made the promises, they did their best to fulfill the promise. Jakonde Estate is everywhere in Lagos today. Which one is his house in those Jakonde Estates that they said, okay, I have built this for myself? He still lived where he was living before.
Yeah, but even if we excuse some, I mean, in every situation there are exceptions,
yes,
Pastor. But the generality have failed to keep most of those promises. Otherwise, we won't still, 60 years later, be having the same discussion that people had 60 years ago.
I know. I do understand that. But truth of the matter, for God's sake, is any leader that calls himself a person of integrity, a patriot, someone who wants society to change, cannot be like others. He must stand shoulder high above the perversity of his generation. It boils down on leadership. I accept totally that the leaders are from among the followers, because it's not Britain that is ruling Nigeria today, although they have their hands in every pie, and they know who should come in and who should go out in order to protect their own investment interests in our country. Take that and put it aside. The truth of the matter is, to whom brain is given, some thinking is expected. To whom much is given, much is required. APC promised change. It appears that people are being shortchanged. Don't promise what you cannot deliver. Now, am I saying PDP would have been better? Not at all. It was a time in our nation that the word on the street is anything but Jonathan. And it will appear to me today that even if a goat had offered himself in 2015, he would have won election in Nigeria.
Well, now, the allusion you've given brings to mind the fact that you gave another prophecy which had to do with the fact that you yourself, who I would assume would have some, if not all, these attributes that we have been talking about, would rule Nigeria at some point. Even though, again, like many prophecies, those who were doing the interpreting after you gave it tended to give it a different coloration. As a matter of fact, there were one or two people who mentioned the fact that you were talking about 2019, which created a great deal of confusion as to whether you were going to go up against your friend, who at that time had not yet indicated that he would run. So which one is it?
I will answer you without having to go back home and check my notes. I'm saying that, look, I'd said it. It is morally reprehensible for me to run an election against President Buhari. Why? Because we took sweet counsel together. We went through rigorous campaign with only one thing at the back of our minds, or my mind, to bring about a nation that works in our lifetime. There were so many things I did behind the scene in 2015 election, known to both President Buhari now and former President Jonathan Goodluck. I remember the then British High Commissioner, now Sir Andrews, he looked at me and said, "What do you want out of this?" I said, not an office, not anything. I want a nation that works. I took my family to Britain in 1994 because of their education, and we needed to apply for British passport. I stayed at home, went to the British post office, took the postal forms, filled them, put adequate postal order, and posted it to the British passport office on a Monday. By Friday, all the supporting documents had been returned to me, and by the following week, Tuesday and Wednesday, all the British passport had come. I did not pick my phone to call anybody. Nobody had to influence anybody. That's a nation that works. Write any letter to any ministry in Nigeria if you get a reply, except you go there physically. That's what I thought we wanted to do, and that was what I thought. It does not take multitudes to change society. Look at Lincoln U and a crop of people that made Singapore what it is today. I believe we will still have that. Whether Third Force can deliver it or not is what I cannot guarantee. Or this coalition or that coalition. Why? Because you are still asking for another APC to be built. They will come from PDP again, and they are all the same, and they will try to offer what they cannot deliver. But there's a God in heavens who does not sleep nor slumber, and who created this multitude of people. He will raise a new breed without greed, a radical opposition to corruption. Men and women and boys and girls who choose to win by righteousness. My eyes will see it in my lifetime. To answer your question directly, do I think one day I will rule this nation? Without any iota of doubt, the day is coming when I will serve this nation in leadership capacity. I will not rule my nation, I will serve it.
Now, it was reported widely at the time, a few weeks ago, another of your friends, people with whom you worked out the political developments in 2011, now Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, was at your church. And many people were surprised because first, Nasir El-Rufai is a Muslim, as you were. They know you are friends, although they hadn't seen two of you publicly for quite a while. And then speculation started as to what the visit was about.
Well, at that time, I'd just given the word January 1, that look, this is what God is saying to me concerning this nation. I gave 12 prophecies. The 12th one was the only one they saw. Every other thing that we said that had come to pass, they didn't see it. And I do not think we are friends in secret and not in the open, because those who follow until he became governor, he had attended our church at least that I can recall more than 6 times, alongside with Jimmy Lawal. They will come on a Sunday, have lunch with me, participate in the worship, not because they have changed their religion, but because, Lord, this man makes sense. Okay? And is PDP Muslim and APC Christian? You're talking about a value system that can change society. When I fully supported the candidacy of Nasir El-Rufai for Kaduna State, it's because I believe it would deliver. Now, whether I hold the same view today or not is not the issue now. The truth of the matter is, somewhere along the line, we dropped the ball.
When you say we, who now?
Now, I mean those who were in the engine room of CPC and who truly know the type of leader we are should have insisted on certain things before today to be there to support him through. But strange bedfellows who did not know what we stood for and what our values were and what we like to see in society became principal actors, and they were completely disconnected from the values that brought us together. That's my candid opinion.
We've taken a look back significantly, but let's now take a look forward. Now that President Buhari says he will like to recontest, as you indicated earlier in the interview, more people are likely to come out from the various political parties, and maybe even someone from the third force and all of that. How do you see this playing out? Because there are some people who, as you said, are wary now. It's like deja vu each time this happens, you know. We all gather, there's a lot of noise and so on. I mean, well, I spoke to General Babangida a couple of days ago, and he said, look, Nigerians like to talk. So around this time, they're going to spend a lot of time and energy talking. But in terms of what actually happens at the end of the day, very little changes. Do you see anything between now and those elections next year that gives you cause to believe that the end result is going to be different from what we have always had?
Well, I think it was Albert Einstein who said you can't keep on doing the same thing again and again and expect a different result or a different outcome. So if we don't do it differently, we are going to continue to get the same result. However, there's what is called the God factor. Everybody concluded that Abacha would succeed himself as a civilian president, and God ruled otherwise. In my language, sometimes they say, the man who is not going to see tomorrow and who is saying, in 6 months I will be this, and in 7 months I will be that. The Bible says, stop saying so things, say by God's grace, if God wills. There's a God factor. But now we cannot blame God for the atrocities being perpetrated by citizens of our country and that are condoned or embraced by others who are benefiting from it. Do I really think something dramatic will come from third first? The faces I've seen there, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. I've not seen any faces there that will make me think and say, oh, maybe this person is a leader worth following. Let's try whether it loses or it fails. And, you know, from the way things are structured now, except God intervenes, let no one fool himself. The Buhari I know would have done his homework as to ensure that he will win the election before declaring it. And you can see all the brickbat between the Senate and INEC and the executive on the order of election. Those who are saying the presidential election first are the beneficiaries, the governors, who know that it will be bandwagon effect. Once he wins, others will follow. And those who say no, this other election first, they know that once those ones lose, he also will lose. That's the game that is going on. And it looks like, why should the Senate do this? Why should the National Assembly do this? Do they have the power? They have the power under the Constitution to amend the law. It's written in black and white. The law that INEC is claiming became law at the instance of the National Assembly. And if they say, okay, we want this or that, they are all using it to negotiate for power and what each one will have. It is negotiation that is going on, and they will resolve it in their own best interest at the end of the day. I do not waste my time and energy to begin to pontificate on such issues. I trust God for a divine intervention in Nigeria. I trust God. And we are not going to fold our hands also that by February, enough citizens would demand for what is right and what can set our nation free. And we are going to apply all the resources and our God-given energy to ensure greater, not just returns or output than we did with Save Nigeria Group. And that's why the new Nigeria Progressive Movement is on the march. We are working like Deep River with majestic silence right now, but we'll come out at the right time to let the politicians know that yesterday ended last night.
Which one is the new Nigeria Progressive Movement?
That's the one I am solidly behind alongside with others.
When are we going to hear from you?
You are going to hear from me from the month of May. I've done one town hall meeting in the UK. I'm doing another town hall meeting in America, in Maryland this month, and I'll do the last one in Scotland, and then we'll bring in the diaspora and those inside. There will be an invasion of the polity in this country.
Are you thinking of working with those who are already on ground, some of those you mentioned earlier,
like
elements of those? Because you said you've looked at them. You've seen many of the old faces, but perhaps you've seen a few new faces as well.
Well, a good general keeps his last card in his chest. The moment you put it out there, they know how to attack it. That's why I call it a deep river that flows with majestic silence. You know, God looks down from heaven and he laughs. He said, he that sitteth in heaven shall laugh. He shall hold them in derision. Let them continue to think it's going to be business as usual, but they will be shocked to their marrow when God begins to bring a new order out. The God who commanded light to shine out of darkness is going to have mercy upon this nation so that the destinies of close to 200 million people will not be manipulated and destroyed by a few hands who are so full that they don't know that such thing as hunger exists.
Pastor Tunde Bakare, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.